again, Humangin. I'm going to discuss you all about the brief history of globalization and the types of globalization. But first, what is globalization? Now, globalization, it is a term used to describe how trade and technology have made the world into a more connected and interdependent place. Also, it captures in its scope and economic and social changes that have come about as a result. And it is one of the most important intellectual and social phenomena of the contemporary moment. Yet its meaning and effect are wildly contested. From the financial crisis to climate change, and it is clear that local issues can have global impacts. And equally, global pandemic, corporations, market, and other phenomena impact upon local life in multiple and uneven ways. Also, it is the process by which ideas, knowledge, information, goods, and service spread around the world. In business, the term is used in an economic context to describe integrated economies marked by free trade, free flow of capital among the countries, and easy access to foreign resources, including labor markets, to maximize returns and benefits for the common good. Also, it is driven by the convergence of cultural economic systems. The convergence promotes and in some access necessities increased interaction and integration and interdependence among nations. Now, the more countries and more regions of the world become entertained politically, naturally, culturally, and economically, the more globalized the world becomes. Now, why is globalization important? Because globalization changes the way nations, business, and people interact. Now, specifically, it changes the nature and international economic activity, expanding trade, opening global supply chains, and providing access to natural resources and labor market. Now, globalization, it is a complex web of social process that intensity and expand worldwide economic, cultural, political, and technological exchange and connections by Dr. Kaira. So now let's begin with the brief history of globalization. Now we have here for 1st century BC to 5th century AD. It is Silk Road. Now we have here for Silk Road. First, it's luxury products from China started to appear on the other edge of the Euro-Asian continent in Rome. Also, trade has stopped being local or regional affair and started to become global. Okay, the second one we have here the spice routes from 7th to 15th centuries. Now, the spice routes, it is the new region spread in all directions from its Arabian heartland in the 7th century. Now, by the early 9th century, Muslims traders already dominated Mediterranean and Indian Ocean trade. Afterwards, they could be found as far east as Indians, which over time became Muslims majority country, and as far west as Moorish Spain. Now we have here in the 15th centuries, spices came to Europe via the Middle East land and sea routes. And also, in spices were in huge demand both for food dishes and for even use in medicines. Now for the third one, we have here age of discovery in 15th to 18th centuries. Now it was in this era, from the end of 15th century onwards, the European explorers connected east and west and accidentally discovered the Americans. Now, added by discoveries of the so-called scientific revolution in the fields of astronomy, mechanics, physics, and shipping, the Portuguese, Spanish, and later the Dutch and the English first discovered. Now the subjugated and finally integrated new lands in their economies. Potatoes, tomatoes, coffees, and chocolates were introduced in Europe, and the price of spices feel sleepy. Okay, so now we have here the first wave of globalization for 19th centuries in 1914s. Now this started to change with the first wave of globalization, which roughly occurred over centuries ending in 1914. By the end of 18th century, Great Britain has started to dominate the world both geographically through the establishments of the British Empire and technology with innovations like the steam engine and the industrial weaving machine and more. It was the era of the first individual revolution. Also, the British Industrial Revolution made for fantastic twin engine of global trade. On the one hand, steamships and trains could transport goods over thousands of miles, both within countries and across countries. On the other hand, its industrialization allowed Britain to make products that were in demand all over the world, like iron, textiles, and manufactured goods. Britain was the country that benefited the most from its globalization, as it had the most capital and technology. Others did too, by exporting other goods. We have here the fifth one, the World Wars. So now in 1914, the outbreak of the World War I brought an end to just about everything the burgeoning high society of West has gotten to used to, including globalizations. So now millions of soldiers died in battle. Millions of civilians died as collateral damage was replaced trade destructions replaced constructions. Now, and countries closed their borders yet again. So now in the years between the world wars, the financial markets, which were still connected in global web, cursed for further breakdown of the global economy and its links. Okay, so now we have here the second and the third wave of globalization. Now, by the end of the World War II, marked by the new beginning for global economy, under the leadership of new hegemon, the United States of America, and aided by the technologies of the Second Industrial Revolution, like the car and the plane, and the global trade started to rise once again. In the early decades after World War II, institutions like the European Union and the other free trade vehicles championed by the US were responsible for much of the increase in international trade. Okay, so now we have here the Globalization 4.0. In a world increasingly dominated by two global powers, the US and the China, the new frontier of globalization is the cyber world. Now, the digital economy in its infancy during the third wave of globalization is now becoming a force to reckon with through e-commerce, digital services like 3D printing. It is further enabled by artificial intelligence, but threatened by cross-borders hacking and cyber attack. Okay, so we have here the globalization and its definition. Now, the term the globalization, it is derived from the word globalize, which refers to the emergence of an international network of economic systems. So for globalization, it is a process of interactions and integrations among the people, companies, and governments of different nations. A process driven by the international trade and investment and aided by information technology from Levin Institute 2016. Also, globalization defined as a process that, based on international strategies, aims to expand business operations on a worldwide level and was participated by the facilitation of global communication due to technological advancement. Okay, so now let's begin with the types of globalization. For the first one, we have here economic globalization. So economic globalization refers to the increasing interdependence of world economies as a result of growing scale of cross-border trade of commodities and services, flow international capital, and wide and rapid spread of technologies from Shenzhen 2000s. So for example, Philippines major exports and imports products. For export, we have here coconut oil to Indonesia and India, United States, and Europe. Now, the nation's departments of trade and industry has identified electronic products as one of the Philippines' key export commodities. Like for mango export to Japan, South Korea, Singapore, dried mango to Hong Kong and Canada, cacao seeds from Davao export to Singapore, London, and US. Okay, so now let's continue with imports. Now for the imports, it is the main trade partners of the Philippines, including China, Japan, and United States, Singapore, and also Hong Kong. So it is refined petroleum import from the Russians and Saudi Arabians. For the rice from Vietnam and Thailand. Okay, so we have here the second one, which is the military globalization. So now, according to David Hill, military globalization is the process which embodies the growing extensity and intensity of military relations among the political units of the world system. Understood as such, it reflects both the expanding network and the worldwide military ties and relations, as well as the impacts of military technologies innovations from steamships to satellites, which over time have reconstituted the world into a single geostrategic space. Now, while Robert Kiyosaki and Joseph Nye, military globalization entails long-distance networks of interdependence in which force and the threat of promise of force are employed. Okay, so now let's continue with the third one. We have here the cultural globalization. So cultural globalization refers to the interpretations of cultures, which is as a consequence means nations adopt principles, beliefs, and costumes of the other nations, losing their unique culture to a unique globalized supra-culture. Also, it is the transmission of ideas, meanings, and values around the world in such way as to extend and intensity social relations. Though globalization cultures of specific country can be shared or spread within the countries, the downside of this is some culture that are exclusively on a certain country or are so slowly vanishing. Okay, for example, cultures from different countries from Spain, China, and America. Religion from Spain's noodles dishes from China. So now, based on the other article of David Volatsko, he stated that Putangwa and English are pushing many monetary language to the thing of extinction, some dying language. Okay, so now we have here the ecological globalization. So based on an article published by Ecological Society of America 2008 entitled Ecological Globalization, it said that because of increasing globalization, people often inadvertently introduce as non-native plants, animals, and disease into new locations. For example, we have here the natural resources, big environmental consequence as they contribute to the depletion of natural resources, deforestations, and the destruction of ecosystem and loss of biodiversity. Okay, so now we have here the globalization and politics. So now the globalization of political refers to the absence of the absolute sovereignty of a state political borders over a certain area, as well as increased interactions between the systems of government and increased external intervention and interaction of the basis of democracy, non-governmental organization, human rights, and freedoms. For example, we have here the issues such as the rights of women and children, and drug trafficking. Not crimes are globalized, but also disease. Okay, we have here the sixth one, which is the technological globalization. So the advancement of technology, we can now already communicate with others despite the distance separates us. Through our technology today, the process of globalization is now taking place much faster. Now, the phenomenon by which millions of people are interconnected thanks to the power of digital world via platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Skype, or YouTube. For example, the social media, which is Facebook, it is one of the tools globalizations. Because through Facebook, we can communicate to the people of other countries and give feedback on many issues all around the world. Or, for example, of immoral usage of internet. Okay, so for the last one but not least, we have here the geographical globalization. Now in geography, the globalization is defined as the set of process, economic, social, cultural, technologies, institutional that contribute to the relationship between the societies and individuals around the world. It is progressive process by which exchange and flows between different parts of the world are intensified. Is the new organization and hierarchy of different regions. The world that is constantly changing, moreover, with transportations and flying made so easy and affordable. Apart from a few countries with demanding visas, it is possible to travel the world without barely any restrictions. So guys, in general, globalization is the concept which promotes the idea of uniting all the countries in the world. Okay, so that's for today. Thank you so much for listening. See you and